Welcome. Thank you for being here. I wanted to tell you the story of Open Bubble and how we are trying to change the world two people at a time. It started about 3 years ago, and really feel free to ask questions if you have. And I really would like to make it much more interactive than just me speaking. So about 3 years ago, I was a bit cornered, both personally and professionally. So I took a few weeks off. And during those few weeks, so I spent those few weeks completely by myself. And at some point, I realized that I was in that space of solitude. Everything was very, very well, but I started to notice around me other people who I would think would like to talk with, maybe me or anybody else, actually. So I would be kind of on the receiving end, but I also remembered other periods of my life when I would have loved to be able to go to other people and talk with them. So I started to think about how could we, in this society so full of equipments and software and technology, how could we communicate in real life much more easy with no agenda? And actually, there was no easy solution. Of course, you could think of waving a flag saying I'm available for somebody to talk to. There's a tiny percentage of the population that can go and talk to absolutely anyone, but for the mass majority, and including me, going to someone and ask them to have a conversation is something that's very hard to do. Basically, there are two fears, two hurdles that we need to overcome. The first one is, how am I going to be received, accepted by that person? Is that person really available, like I think she is? Or is she somewhere in her thoughts? Is she actually doing something on her phone and I don't know, working or playing some game, but she's really in that, not just wasting time? So how to make sure that I will be welcomed? That's the first hurdle. And the second one is, what are we going to talk about? And so I started to think of bricks of software, because I'm a software engineer. So I know how, actually I know much, it's much easier for me to talk with computer than with human beings. So I started to think, how could technology help in recreating those bonds that have existed for so many years, but for a few decades have been decaying. Our lifestyle and many other factors have created the current way the society exists, and has made a very good job at distancing ourselves. And that's very interesting to see that for 2 months, many people have been distanced from one another without that being a choice. And from what we read, we really understand now that many people want to get back together and recreate those bonds. So I started to dig into the numbers and realized how much loneliness is taking a toll on the human population. The numbers are absolutely staggering. I won't get very deep into that, but let's say that somewhere between 40 and 50% of the population, of the worldwide population, feels lonely, sometimes, often, or all the time. And again, there have been studies. I know of studies in France, studies in the US, studies in the UK, but I'm absolutely certain it's the same in many other countries in the world. All the Western countries are very subject to loneliness. So between 40 and 50% of the population feels lonely, well, sometimes, often, or all the time. In France, in particular, that's where I have the most numbers. There is this study that explains very well that there are 5 different ways for people to bond with each other, 5 different kinds of socialization, if you want. First one, of course, is the family. Then it's the friends, it's the neighbors, it's the different kinds of associations, whatever kind of associations, maybe it religious or sports association or arts or whatever. And then the fifth is the job, the people you meet when you're working. In France, from those 5 kinds of bonds that you can have, 10% of the population has 0 and 20% has just 1. So 30% of the population, of the French population, 30%, 30, that's really huge, is on the verge of being completely, it's not even lonely, it's completely isolated. And the job market here in France, and it's going to be even worse, of course, in the coming months. The job market here in France is tense. You read many studies where you understand that many people in their job are not happy, but one reason they stay with their job that they don't like is simply that if they were out of that job, they wouldn't have anybody else to talk to. So how can we recreate a way for those people to bind together? The name Open Bubble, that platform that we created, comes really from that idea. We all live in bubbles, maybe so family bubbles, friends bubbles, information bubble. Of course, we've heard a lot about that. And it's very hard to go outside of those bubbles and meet new people. It's really not that often that you have the chance of meeting someone that's completely out of your regular world. The idea of Open Bubble, it's not to break the bubbles. Again, those bubbles have a role and they protect us. We feel comfortable inside them. So I don't want to break them, but sometimes being able to open a kind of a tiny window and change the air can be very, very beneficial for everyone, actually. So Open Bubble is a way to basically tell, depends on how you see your life and the world and basically everything, but it's a way for telling the system, or it's a way for telling the universe, or it's a way for telling karma that you're ready to talk with somebody else. And you absolutely don't choose anything. You don't choose what kind of person you're going to talk to. You, again, nothing. You just make yourself available for a conversation with an unknown person for, let's say, 15 minutes, but it can last much more than that. And Open Bubbles meetings always happen in public places. So it can be a coffee house, it can be maybe a park, it can be a train station. There are many, many lonely people in train station just waiting for a train or for someone to arrive. You have sometimes in front of you that's available. Why not just talk with somebody else? So you basically tell Open Bubble that you're here, let's say in the train station. you're available for 45 minutes, and then the message goes off. And the next person in that same train station who's going to make the same gesture, who's going to tell OpenBubble that she's available the same way, those two people are going to be matched together. And again, there's no way for each one of them to choose anybody. It's really the pure chance. So they're matched together. And the idea is that together they go to the next Starbucks coffee or whatever coffee house they want to go to. And they order a drink, they sit at a table, and they start talking. So first hurdle, how am I sure that that person I'm going to talk to is available? Well, that person declared she's available. So that way we lift the first hurdle. The second is, what are we going to talk about? If it's in a train station, it's very wide. You can have many subjects, or you can be completely frozen. In that case, OpenBubble offers a few ideas for topics of discussion. An idea, for example, is who would you like to have dinner with tonight? If you could choose absolutely anyone. And from there, we have funny stories. People are choosing, usually when people play OpenBubble for the first time, they choose the person that they most admire. I would like to have dinner with this very famous, let's say, jazz man. I would like to have dinner with a former president of the United States. Anyway, and then we observe that when over time, people start to play with this idea of having imaginary dinner. Of course, you could, over different meetings, always use the same persona, but it's less fun actually first for yourself. So you start to have in your imagination and to share that with that person you're having the conversation with. You start to have conversation with different people. And at some point, you start to have conversation with actually people that do not exist. You pick a childhood superhero or one of Marvel's Avengers, or well, whomever you don't want to learn from that much as you would from, let's say, former US president, but really someone you want to bind with. And in the way you're binding with that imaginary friend, you're also binding with that person who's in front of you. And let's say that's the first one that comes to my mind right now, Captain America, but I don't like him that much. So I prefer Iron Man, of course. So I'm going to talk about Iron Man with that person who's in front of me, let's say. And that person actually prefers Captain America. So we are going to have a discussion about who's best, and well, whatever outcome that can create, I will bind with that person. And that conversation could last, let's say, 20 minutes, and we go part ways. What happens then is that I feel better just for having talked with somebody else, just for having exchanged with that person. That person also feels better. It's absolutely scientifically proven. We both go back to our regular lives with big smile on our faces. And then when we get home, let's say, we are in a much better mood than just if we came out of the office and had a very shitty day. Maybe we had that shitty day before, but that conversation really started us. So we come back home in a better mood. We transmit that to the people around, immediately around. Let's say we have a family, so we are nicer. When we get back in the next morning, when we go back to the office, we are also nicer. And little by little, we spread joy around us. So that's why with Open Bubble we're creating that well, we're distributing empathy to people at a time, with this idea that for every smile that we generate on people's faces, that smile is going to grow and generate other smiles on other people's faces. And in the end, if we can have, and that's really the goal, if we can have some impact, that would be through spreading smiles, maybe spreading love, but not in the dating kind of love, really spreading good vibes all around us, and that would make the world, well, we think, a better place. I see a few people have joined. Welcome to you. Don't hesitate if you have any question to shoot them. I have the chat open. Welcome. I've heard a voice, but not sure what was said. So I'll keep going. So we started. Open Bubble is a company on a mission. So that's really two sides of it. The first side is really the mission, and we want absolutely anyone to be able to use Open Bubble and to completely freely and very easily have conversation with people around them. But of course, it takes resources to do that and to communicate around that. So we have a B2B model, and we go to companies to which we sell licenses of Open Bubble for their own employees. And that way...
On peut passer un moment tous ensemble?
I'm not sure if you're talking to me. Eve? Oh. Yes, we are going to meet with companies which we try to, and some companies are in that process of understanding that an employee is much more than just someone who can accomplish a set of tasks and has a name on a paycheck. So we are really going first after those companies that really want to put their social responsibility in a very forward way and take care of the people that are part of that company, not just employees. So we recreate around the coffee machine that kind of those conversations that we create in real life in coffee houses or etc. And we help people in companies, mix completely independently of their status in the company, of their job, of their current role, of their unit, whatever. And the idea is that we observe exactly the same thing, of course, from a human perspective on the people themselves. They feel better, so they bring those smiles with us everywhere they go. So that's very good for the people. Same beneficial effects as in the B2C part of Open Bubble. It also has excellent, it's also very beneficial for the company itself. When the people of the company are happier, well, they tend to spread the smiles and the love around. So they work better, their team is more engaged, And in the end, the company works better. So from an insider point of view, it's better for the company because, well, basically, very basically, people are more productive. Which company would not love that? So that's one very good side of it. Another very good side of it is from the outside, a company where which people are happy to work for, as an excellent or as an improved, let's say, improved employer's brand. So it's easier for a company to attract new talents when they need to, and exactly the talents that they want, and to be able to pick the new employees. We've for the past 2 months, of course, we've had when the lockdowns were started to be announced in Italy, then in France, then in so many other countries. Our first reaction was, of course, that it was very ironic to try to get people to meet in coffee houses because of all of them being closed. So what we did is that we created Open Bubble Online, which is with this exact same philosophy, the possibility for people to just chat with other people. Again, always creating that community of kindness. So we are. It's important that everyone behaves. Maybe you remember, don't know when that was, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, chat roulette. We really did not want to be a door for that. So it's only text chat, but it works decently well. And we can deploy that also in companies, within companies, for people to meet while they are home. It's been kind of fun, and right now it's actually becoming a very important tool for companies. We have the right now to go outside of our homes again, but many companies are ask their employees, those who can, to stay at home and keep on working from home. We've heard all that Google and Facebook ask their employees when they can to stay at home until the end of this year, end of 2020. In France, Google asked their employees to, when they can, to stay home until the end of 2021. And we've heard that Twitter in the US and PSA, so Peugeot and Citroën here in France, are starting to say that people can work from home absolutely as long as they love, as they like, sorry, and maybe until the end of their career, or career within those companies at least. So there's a big shift in how work is going to be done and where work is going to be done from. And if you think for a minute, how does a company who hires a new employee, how can that employee be integrated within the company when the only thing that that person is going to talk to is a screen? That person with the new job is going to have a set of tasks to do. Well, they will do some Zoom conferences, just like we do right now, but that doesn't bring that human touch. And there's no way, or at least as long as we don't have the proper VR, which is certainly not something I'm hoping for, but anyway, we have no way within the coming years to recreate that, that emotion that you have when you talk to someone who's, let's say, 2 meters apart. So we kept the distance, the physical distance that keeps us safe, sorry, but we don't break the emotional link that is broken by technology. still, we try with OpenBubble and those companies to help those new employees meet new colleagues. Again, completely by chance, and start to create different bonds than just I'm your boss and you have to do this and this and that, and I'm just going to check, and I can see in Zoom sessions my teammates, but nobody else in the company. So it's really important for us to find ways of recreating those bonds while we are home. And when we get back to the offices, well, the coffee machine is going to be the source of conversation that it's always been well, for a very, very long time. And we also want to accompany that. So yeah, I'm just checking if you have questions. Again, jump in if anything. We have 5 more minutes to go. So I started with the mission and then the company part. So we make money by licensing OpenBubble to companies, and that money will allow us to spread OpenBubble as largely as we can. Right now, OpenBubble speaks French and English, but users, of course, are matched, if you want, by the languages that they speak. So we're certain they can have a proper conversation. And so the number of languages is much larger than just French and English. What else can I say? Well, you can try it, of course, openbubble.net. And if I want to talk a little bit about where we're heading, we've integrated OpenBubble in Microsoft Teams. So companies that are using Microsoft Teams are very important for us. They are first targets, if you want. And by doing that, we are having as a project to incorporate some AI, artificial intelligence, to be able to detect early signs of well, emotional or professional anxiety, if you want, signs of well, depression and burnout. It's so common now in offices, and privacy is very, very, I'm not sure I mentioned that, privacy is very, very important with OpenBubble. So whenever you're using it on your own as an individual or through your company, the company itself doesn't know nothing about what's going on. They don't know who you're talking to or what you're talking about. And still using that AI without any input from the company, we will be able to detect early signs of for people who need help, basically, and just avoid well, burnout and worst cases. That's about it for me. Thank you very, very much for listening to me. I hope it was interesting. And if you want to find out more, I'm George with an S at the end, since I'm French. And you can email me, george@openbubble.net, or find me on basically any social network with George DLVB. You see my full name in the title. So George's DLVB on social networks. Thank you very much. I wish you an excellent weekend. And well, again, don't hesitate to shoot out. Bye-bye.